so highly thought of and highly recruited with the Los Angeles Rams. Cam Akers, 2 super playoff games. We'll see what happens there. Hey, real quick before I get back into SEC nonsense, it's really weird what's going on right now in the NFL. You know how your quarterback and coach need to be on the same page? And what a credit to Sean Payton and Drew Brees for whatever it was, 15 years of working together, because you know there were times where they were ticked off at each other, right? Or frustrated with one another, yet they both had the stuff to continue to work toward the common goal of putting together a good team, understanding who they are and what they are on offense, and working towards winning in the NFL, which is extremely difficult. I mean, all these teams are set up to be 8-8. Look at the difference between the Chiefs and the Browns on Sunday. I mean, the Browns have been dysfunctional for 25 years. And yet you get a good coach. They already had talent on the roster, and there is a penny's worth of difference there. And that's with Patrick Mahomes. That's why the NFL is so darn good. And when I see what happened with Brees and Sean Payton, and I read this article this morning on Sean McVay and Jared Goff, and things are not all rosy and you know, unicorns and Skittles out there in Manhattan Beach in Los Angeles, and we just saw what happened in Philadelphia with Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson, you need to be – and what's happening with Deshaun Watson. I mean, Deshaun Watson is absolutely furious and ticked off with the Houston Texans ownership. What a tribute and tip of the cap to Drew Brees and Sean Payton, because you know there were times where they – and this is what separates in business too. The ability to tell somebody to go to hell but yet shake it off and continue to work and move forward, right, to the goals that you have set within your company, organization, church, or school or business. And that's, I mean, Sean and Drew were, I mean, it is a high-stakes poker game every weekend. And they had the ability to work together, and both were stars. Everybody around them told them what they wanted to hear. But yet they challenged each other as people and men to get better, and what a great run of I don't know how many playoff wins and a Lombardi trophy. And 2 Hall of Fame. I mean, Drew's first ballot Hall of Fame, and Sean Payton's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, after he wins the Super Bowl in Dallas with Dak Prescott?
No. You've got that wrong. When Dak wins the Super Bowl in New Orleans.
No.
Unfortunately, New Orleans can't take $40 million. I guess they could somehow figure it out, but it's very, very difficult, I think, to absorb a $40 million a year contract, regardless of who you are. But I guess these capologists can somehow figure it out. Maybe Deshaun and the maybe the Texans and the Miami Dolphins will do a trade at some point. I doubt it. I would think they'll smooth it over eventually enough with Deshaun Watson and not let go of their very talented QB. All right, Blake's still holding out hope that after 25 years, Jerry Jones is going to turn it around. And
it's not about Jerry. He's getting old. We're moving him out. Dak's got
Jerry Jones.
Dak's got
has access
10 more years at least
to all this anti-aging stuff that we talk about, and it's here and it's real and it's going to get better and better. Jerry will take whatever it takes, like most people, but with his means, Jerry could be feeling like 60 years old.
Hey,
even though he's 70, I think 8.
Your brake line can still fail.
I think 15 years. I mean, he could easily have 15 years in him.
Steven's moving him out.
Whatever. SEC Insider Hit brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue. The official healthcare provider of the Out of Bounds show, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. I hope we have the Steve Azar event this June. We'll see what COVID does to more events in 2021. But thank goodness for sports, right? I mean, let's all just, love the NFL because they're the one that drove this thing. And it was a beautiful thing for sure to have college football and the NFL. So Tennessee fired Jeremy Pruitt yesterday, and they're kind of moving Philip Fulmer out the door. absolute and total dysfunction. They're trying to trump some teams that have been bathing in dysfunction the last few years. And so Tennessee is leading the way right now, both in the Southeastern Conference and within collegiate athletics. We want to welcome in Charlie Burris, Vols insider, on the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale guest line. And Charlie, what a bizarre day for Tennessee fans and their leadership. Let's start with Jeremy Pruitt and Philip Fulmer. How is this going to look? Is Fulmer going to make the next hire, or is someone else going to make the next football hire at Tennessee?
The message was pretty clear yesterday from Tennessee's chancellor that the next AD will be making this hire, and the initial guess for who that will be is John Gilbert. And I guess we can, if you want to go down that road, we can talk about that. But the situation with Fulmer is, I guess I wouldn't say odd. It makes sense when you think about it, but it's very Tennessee. Because here's the truth. A regular AD that's not Philip Fulmer in this situation just gets fired. They screwed up. The hiring of Jeremy Pruitt was a total mistake. He's terrible. And that AD, and I mean, not only was he terrible, he was apparently cheating to high heaven and doing it somewhat out in the open, apparently. And a regular AD just gets fired. But this is Phil Fulmer. You know, he won a national championship at Tennessee. He's a beloved character and has been a truly great ambassador for this university. But, I mean, I think they kind of did something they sort of feel like they had to do. Trotted him out yesterday at that press conference and went, "Thank you, Phil, for everything that you've done and all this." And you know, Phil got to say that it was my choice to move out of the way, and I think this is the best thing for the university. I don't believe that for one second. And I mean, maybe that's true, but I mean, I think they just looked and they said, "This got all screwed up. We got to move on." And they gave him the benefit of being able to have this appreciation session yesterday. But yeah, the next guy is going to be on this hire. I believe that. Well, the next guy, the donors, Peyton Manning, is going to be in there too. Apparently, it's a total mess.
So, all right, you mentioned John Gilbert. I think he's the AD at East Carolina. He was the AD at Southern Miss. He was an associate AD at Tennessee. You feel like Gilbert will be tapped as the next athletic director at Tennessee?
It just makes a lot of sense. He was, associate AD at Tennessee with Dave Hart, I believe, 2011 to 2016. And he went to the same college as Rick Barnes. He is friends with Rick Barnes. If you look at his page on East Carolina's website, it has an endorsement from Rick Barnes. And let's be honest about what is happening in Tennessee athletics. The only major sport that's really going in the fully correct direction is basketball. Rick Barnes is beloved, and he has a pretty decent amount of sway around that place right now because of all of that. And so I think that connection almost makes Gilbert a shoo-in. I don't want to make it look like Barnes is making this decision. I think Gilbert is a pretty good candidate. Maybe not my first choice, because there are a few other guys out there that I think you could have gone after that are maybe more sort of sons of Tennessee and would have probably known better how to be, I guess, better tapped into this fan base and sort of how to handle that situation. But Gilbert has been here before. He'll probably be fine, but I'm going to be cynical on this situation. And until they give me a reason not to. Tennessee has screwed up so much in the past. I mean, you just get beaten down, and it's hard to believe that they'll do anything right. I hope he does something right. I hope.
Well,
he does.
All right.
We'll see.
Let's dive into that. Charlie Burris, A to Z Sports, Big Orange Podcast. He joins us on the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale guest line talking Tennessee's dysfunction. They fired Jeremy Pruitt with cause and are kind of showing Philip Fulmer out the door. Yet he's going to get paid, evidently, the next 3 years, which is mind-boggling considering what he's done to the athletic department. Who do you think – all right, Hugh Freeze can't take this job because of the NCAA mess. Let's unpack that in a minute. Who do you think are legit top candidates for this job, or can you not say until they hire a John Gilbert?
I think it's going to be tough until they do bring in a guy, but I think reading the tea leaves, the initial reports around this situation are that Peyton Manning will be involved to a decent extent with this hire. You think about John Gilbert, and maybe I think both of us probably know hiring in college football is not a meritocracy. It's who you know. It's the agent that you have. Will he put you in front of the right people and get you in the right rooms to have the interviews? All of that sort of stuff. I mean,
Billy Napier?
My initial thought, I think he would be down the list. Personally, I really think we'd have to see when the AD gets in here and more of some of the initial kind of things that come out about where they might be looking. But my guess would be, in a name that has popped up among a series of now national writers, is like Bill O'Brien. And I think this is coming up because of the Peyton Manning connection,
oh,
NFL
God.
connection. I know. And just, it's not the direction that I would go. That's the name that I've seen pop up. But you're the regular guys down the list. Billy Napier, Chadwell, I think could be realistic. I think that it was probably a pretty smart move, honestly, as crazy as that might be to say about something Tennessee is doing right now. But having Kevin Steele come in, because I think for an up-and-coming guy, potentially, you could go, hey, we have Kevin Steele here for you, one of the longtime best recruiters in the SEC, that potentially Rodney Garner, too, who's sort of tied at the hip with Steele. And you could say, hey, we have these guys. They weren't involved in the cheating, so they're going to be around, and they can help you out when we bring you in, and you'll already have big names on staff, and kind of sell an up-and-comer like that to Tennessee, potentially, like you said, Napier, Chadwell, some of those guys. I think, Matt Campbell's off the table. He's not going anywhere. You could go down the list, but to say, oh, this is a leading candidate right now, I don't know. I can tell you the guys that have been thrown out the most. But, of course, as I said, just so much of that reporting from national guys is just them talking to agents and agents going, oh, well, this guy could be a good fit. Like, people have been throwing out Tony Elliott. Tony Elliott. What are we doing? You can't sell Tony Elliott to this fan base right now. Tony Elliott is Jeremy Pruitt. That's absurd. And even if he would be a good coach, he might be a good coach, but you can't sell that to the fan base right now. Just a guy who's been an assistant. And so really we will just have to see and kind of go from there when they get an AD in the door.
Interesting. All right, Charlie Burris, Big Orange Podcast, Vols Insider. He joins us on the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone. Get our listeners up to speed. Tennessee fired Jeremy Pruitt with cause, kind of showing Philip Fulmer out the door, but he gets paid for 3 years because he's Philip Fulmer. Even though he, according to Pete Thamel, Yahoo Sports, ended up microwaving rotten salmon for Tennessee the last few years. And what direction will they go is what we're discussing with Charlie. Billy Napier, Jeremy Chadwell, Bill O'Brien. Hugh Freeze is out. Freeze is not going to be. He would win, and he would be a good hire if he kept everything straight. But with the NCAA looming, and of course they did their own investigation so that they could get Pruitt with cause. You just can't go with Hugh Freeze, who just went through major probation with Ole Miss. What do you think about the NCAA stuff? Tom Mars, who's been active in representing people in the world of collegiate athletics, said that Tennessee is threading a needle because they basically brought a strong investigation on themselves, independent of the NCAA, so that it looked like they could get to the bottom of this Jeremy Pruitt thing. But then where do you cut it off? Because now that you've done the deal, you don't want any more severe misconduct to be found, because that could just mean more scholarships and bowl bans. Your thoughts, Charlie?
I think threading the needle is a pretty apt way to describe this. It's risky. It is risky. also at the same time, I kind of think they almost had no choice. You had a 3-win guy on your hands, and someone comes to you, reportedly some sort of disgruntled employee or something, comes and apparently has some pretty serious receipts, and they look and they go, well, if the NCAA shows up, we're not about to burn down our football program for a 3-win guy, And so, yeah, to some extent, it appears they almost had no choice, but it is a very delicate situation, I think. But my prediction would be they are playing it correctly so far. You're getting all of the guys gone who were involved in this. I mean, you're shuffling them all out the door. That helps, obviously, right from the beginning, just to say none of these people are around anymore to the NCAA. And then I would guess they do some sort of self-punishment bowl ban. Let's be honest, Tennessee's not going to a bowl next year anyway. So bowl ban probably. Maybe they volunteer to give up some scholarships. I mean, just think of the stuff that's happened to other schools in the past, and I think that will probably pacify the NCAA to a decent extent. I doubt that they would pile on a whole lot more than that. Just looking historically at what they've done. I mean, well, and tell me this, because I know you're down in Mississippi. What happened with Ole Miss after the free stuff specifically? Because I've just seen it tangentially.
Well,
I know there was additional punishment.
All right, so during the investigation, they self-imposed. Then once the NCAA wrapped it up and Ole Miss had to go in front of the infractions committee, they received another bowl ban and were deemed some scholarships. Now, several coaches got show causes. Hugh Freeze did not. So he's not if Tennessee were to take a chance, I don't think they will, but he somehow, it looks like Jeremy Pruitt's kind of nailed that he could definitely get a show cause. Freeze had good representation, and he fought the hell out of it. But Freeze walked away without a show cause, which was huge. Now, several assistants received show causes. So it'll be, and I think you were onto something. Charlie Burris, A to Z Sports, Big Orange podcast, talking Vols football and just their dysfunction in their athletic department. Are they going to hire John Gilbert, who's the East Carolina AD, was at Southern Miss, but was a longtime Tennessee lieutenant prior to that? And will John come in and immediately go and hire a coach within the next 3 or 4 or 5 days whenever he is hired? I mean, is he hired by the weekend? It'll be interesting. But, Charlie, you kind of alluded to this. Don't you get the sense there was a whistleblower on Pruitt's staff and Tennessee needed that to, quote, unquote, get this deal done, to have the confidence, even though he's going to fight it, to fire him with cause?
Yes, I think that's exactly what it was. It's hard to determine exactly where the motivation comes from there for somebody to want to blow this situation up. But yes, I mean it was something along those lines. Just judging from what the chancellor said yesterday when she explained the situation. Somebody came to them on November 13th, and by November 19th, they had a lawyer in-house conducting this investigation. So it got serious real quick. And so, you can read into that what you want. I don't think we'll really know the details until we get some of the Freedom of Information Act requests in and can get some of these documents. Hopefully some of the details will come out. But it's an odd situation. There's been this narrative around Tennessee with some Tennessee fans and different people that, Tennessee is nuking its program so that they could avoid a buyout, or that they're stabbing Jeremy Pruitt in the back. I think it was cut and dry in the way that cut and dry is probably a little overly simplified, but it is what I said earlier. I believe where they were handed these allegations, the NCAA came knocking, and they said, we're not going to burn down our program for a 3-win guy. Yeah, everybody said yesterday, if Tennessee goes 7-3 last year, the only thing that Tennessee finds in this investigation is 5-star commitments. Okay, sure. But, that's probably true, but it is what it is. This wasn't a mafia move by Tennessee or some 4D chess. They kind of got backed into a corner and said, we're not going to fight for this guy. We're not going We're not going to ride with him like Ole Miss did with Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze beat Alabama and won 10 games.
Sure.
Pruitt sucked. Pruitt was a terrible coach, and they're not going to stick by their guy, in something around level 1, major level 1 allegations, apparently, and multiple of them, over a guy that can't lose to Kentucky by 30. Like, that's just absurd.
That's hard to do, actually.
Ridiculous situation. Yeah, genuinely it is.
I mean, Mississippi State had 6 turnovers against Kentucky this past year, still only lost by 21. So, yeah, Pruitt, that was a special kind of malfunction from the head coach. Well, Charlie, we're going to check in with you again probably in the next week. It'd be interesting to see how do they expedite this hire with John Gilbert literally in the next day or two and go ahead and get him in and start moving towards getting a coach in the next few weeks, and we'll see what shakes out. Wild stuff. Philip Fulmer is lucky he's still receiving a paycheck from the University of Tennessee. I would think if anybody can come in and get everybody straight, it's Peyton Manning. I mean, the guy's super smart, sharp, and loves the university, so maybe they will lean on his guidance and expertise. Charlie Burris, A to Z Sports, Big Orange Podcast on the Out of Bounds Show. Thanks, Charlie. We appreciate it, buddy.
Appreciate it.
All right, so Charlie Burris on the Out of Bounds Show and the Parish Canebrake Brewing guest line. Parish Canebrake is a delicious wheat ale out of Louisiana. All the Parish beers are super good, and their portfolio is awesome. We're live in the Bank Plus studio, Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We'll have Mike Detillier on Drew Brees and the Saints coming up at 8:30. Did this LSU pull the trigger on Ryan Nelson or what yet?
Well, so apparently they
or did the Saints block him?
Exactly. The Tigers, LSU tried to hire Ryan Nielsen from New Orleans, and supposedly Nielsen's contract with the Saints doesn't have a provision that includes college football coaching jobs. So there's this weird language battle going on, and the Saints said, no, we're not letting you go.
All right,
it's
for our
very
listeners,
weird.
Ryan Nielsen is the D-line coach for the Saints. Ogeron wanted to hire him as his defensive coordinator. Ryan Nielsen played football at Southern Cal when Ed O was a D-line coach at Southern Cal, and then he joined Ed Ogeron in 2005 as a defensive assistant when Eddie O was the head coach at Ole Miss. Ron Nielsen was in Oxford for 3 years, 05, 06, and 07 with Eddie O. He's been with the Saints the last couple years, and Ogeron wanted to hire him, but evidently the Saints are like, you can't. Interesting. See, and the Atlanta Falcons just took a front office guy from the Saints, and he's now their GM. Fontenot will be the Atlanta Falcons' new general manager. Detillier at 8:30. Welcome in. Good morning on a